Hi everyone, have we got a video for you today? We've got everything from Roman ruins to a medieval abbey. We've even got a canal, and for those who love their literature, there's something for you as well. Yes, we're really thrilled with this video that we've made today, but it wasn't the video that we originally planned. We'd been out, we'd filmed, we'd seen some interesting places, we'd shared the history, beautiful scenery. Caroline had been looking in the shops, and then we came to the edit. And look what happened. Yes, we ended up with, that's right, no volume. For those who join us on the live show every Saturday night at 9 o'clock, you know that happens to us sometimes on a live show. You're all sending messages, no volume, no volume, no sound. Well, of course, you weren't there to tell us on this occasion. So we filmed the entire thing. All the footage, here, there, everywhere, all the history, all the shops. Not a single sound. So, not wanting to disappoint, because of course we're away on holiday, so we can't even do a live show this week. We really wanted to get out the premiere tonight, and this is what we've decided to do. We're going to share with you the history from a few of our trips going back as far as 3 years ago, because of course even when we were mudlarking, we still love to do our history. And the first piece that we're going to share with you, well, we certainly didn't have the problem of no volume. In fact, there was a lot of volume, including the traffic. Come on, over to Manchester to share a bit of history of the transport system up there. Normally we would try and avoid the noise of the background traffic. Today that isn't going to happen. In fact, while I'm speaking, you may even hear a train go by, because we're, as I mentioned, right at the centre of the transport hub for a city, and the story of this city is centred on the transport. But what you won't hear, but what is nearby, are the canals. Up this way we have the big Manchester-Liverpool canal. Over that way we have the Bridgewater Canal, and as we speak there are boats travelling along those canals, but they travel so silently. They were the motorways of their day, not for speed and certainly not for the level of noise. And you won't find ducks on a motorway, but you certainly will on the canal. But what they did do was carry the loads. Today, as we travel on the motorways, we see all of the lorries loaded with all kinds of things. They carry everything from steel girders to grain to fuel, even somebody's house on the back of a lorry. You never know what you're going to spot as you travel along the motorway. And it was the same back in the 17 and 1800s on the canals, because they carried all of the stuff needed to feed the people, but also they carried the goods in and out of the city that gave commerce. And commerce was the name of the game. If you weren't making money, the city didn't grow. It stayed a village. But in these parts, villages grew into towns, grew into cities, because they had the links. As I say, over this way you've got the Bridgewater Canal. That was opened in 1771 and then extended in 1776 to come right down to the Mersey. And then the other big deal around here was the 1830s, when rail became the issue, because in the 1830s the first intercity railway line in the world was here, the Liverpool and Manchester railway line. That was the first intercity, and that opened here in 1830. So we're going back a bit. But there was a big deal, something phenomenal that took place. As I mentioned, the canal above us, and that is the Liverpool-Manchester, or depending where you live, the Manchester-Liverpool Canal. We drove over it on the way in on one of those motorways that we mentioned, and you can still see the industrial landscape that grew up on either side of that canal. It's far more modernised today. They've got all sorts of industry as well as entertainment facilities along that area. But the area was built up because the canal was there. And what a canal! Yes, in 1870, the businessmen of Manchester decided they needed more supplies. But they also were somewhat aggrieved by the high port charges they were paying at Liverpool. So here's the solution. Move the port to Manchester. And you say, hang on, Manchester is inland. That didn't stop these guys, because this wasn't a brand new idea. They revived an idea that was first mooted in the 1660s, and 110 years later, they did it. They ran a ship canal, a canal that could carry the big vessels straight out of the sea, all the way to Manchester, and drop off its goods. So by the 1870s, they were ready for something big, and they went for it. An idea from 110 years earlier revived, and the discussions were on. The petitioning of Parliament took place, and by 1887 the work began on a 33-mile canal, ship canal, that ran from the port of Liverpool right through to the new port here in Manchester. And by 1893 the canal was open. It was a high price. The financial costs, there goes one of those trains I talked about. The financial cost was incredible. It cost a fortune, but there was also a human cost, as it cost over 130 men's lives as they dug through and opened up the channel that was necessary to bring the ships to the new port in Manchester. And history is now repeating itself. The fortunes that were made from that canal when it came here are being revived again, because the new owners of the canal decided to reuse it. After all, in many ways, if we want to lower emissions, it's not a matter of finding new technology, but perhaps, to a degree, rediscovering the old. And that's exactly what they did. Currently, 8,000 containers per year are being brought up the canal now. But by 2030, they have plans to increase that to 100,000 containers. So, history, yes, but also the canals are part of our future. Not just for the leisure and the lovely boats and the ducks, but still keeping industry alive in the heart of a city that thought ahead and made their plans long ago. Well, hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane and seeing those beautiful canal boats. I always find them so relaxing, so calming as they just go by. Canals are beautiful places. Well, at least I think so. Here's another beautiful place, because you know, sometimes when things don't go right and when we have our issues and our problems, we can gain from it, even though initially it seems like a setback. And for us, we got to see a lot more of Wales because we couldn't leave during the pandemic. So we discovered a lot of the West Wales coast and had some lovely times there. And one of the places that we went to was St Dogmael's Abbey, and we want to share that with you again now. Well, we're on our way to the other side of the estuary. and although we have to be quick because the light is going to fade fast, we couldn't resist stopping off here at St Dogmeal's Abbey. We're alongside a church on this side, which is a few 100-year old. We've got Abbey ruins on this side, which are 1,000 years old. We've got a tree behind us, which is 500 years plus old. That means that tree was planted before the dissolution of the Abbey, before Henry VIII shut it down. So we're really talking historical. But it goes back even further than that, because the Abbey was built in the 12th century, but there was a monastery recorded here in the 10th century, and it is believed that there was activity, Christian activity in this area going back way before that. So history everywhere. The actual place is named after a saint who was around in about 600 AD. So that's a fair time ago as well. Of course, over the years, lots of things happened in these parts, and there were many changes. The complex here grew and grew until eventually, of course, Henry VIII decided things were going to change. Along with so many other similar properties, they were seized and the dissolution of the monasteries went ahead. The gentleman who actually leased this land from the king built himself a mansion here. But it just goes to show that they built abbeys better than they built mansions, because there's no trace of the mansion and they're not actually certain where it was. But we can still see the mark left by those who lived here at the Abbey.
Now that's an interesting old ruin. Shall we pop in? There's the door. Where's the doorbell? Oh, there it is. Ding dong! Don't worry, it's only us. Can we come in? Oh, thank you. Oh, look at this. Now there's a bit of posh. Look at that big archway there. How lovely. Let's have a look over here. We've got... the top of the walls look like they're falling inward, but it's not that. It's from the shape on the roof originally. We've got all these alcoves here. Now I'm assuming this is the church area, and these would have had icons or things like that in them. Looks very churchy, this bit, doesn't it? Now that is a nasty bit of subsidence, or whatever it is. Definitely not the sort of thing you'd want to see on your house. What a big crack, all the way up to the top. We won't lean on that wall. Looking back, oh, there's a fill. And there you can see the top of the wall curving round onto the roof on that side. Ooh, let's go find some more buildings. There are loads of them around. Look at this. Ooh, I'm quite excited. Go on, let's see what we can find. Right, let's have a little wander in here. Now here you can see the floor has really been destroyed, so they put a nice new one down. But there are little remnants of the old floor there. There's not much other than little remnants of the walls either. Bit drafty, but very interesting to see. Let's have a look over here, because this is a big lump. I think this is probably some sort of column to hold up the ceiling. Wow, look at that. Wow. Is that steps there? Ooh, this is like a big adventure. Yes, there's steps. I think we can go down. Let's have a look. What condition are they in? Oh, they're pretty good. Ooh, very steep. Hold tight, everyone. No rushing. Everybody at the back, take your time, no jostling. You get down in the end, it's just very precarious. Alright, nearly there. Oh, look at this water treat. I didn't think we'd get in here. Look at that column. Wow. The carving on that. Such a lot of work. And it's not the only one. There's one there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those columns. This poor column has really suffered. Not a lot left of that one.
Now I'm stood in one part of the Abbey which is still identifiable, because this is the north transept. There would have been 2 of these. As you may know, many of the buildings in monastic places and churches were built in the shape of a cross. and this would have been to the north side, the one arm of the cross, and there would have been something identical over on the south side. And these would have been chapels used by the monks for celebrating Mass and for their private devotions. I seem to have solved a mystery.
Oh.
I know where our steps used to go.
Where?
Those circular stairs used to take you to the upper floor. Now I know it's hard to believe there was an upper floor because we're stood in a building that's only 3 foot high. But these rooms were storerooms. They were also meeting rooms where the monks could meet people from outside of the abbey. But above here was where the abbot had his private quarters. He had a private chapel, he had his bedchamber. It was up above us, above our heads, was where he lived.
Now I wonder if that man with the saw was disturbing him, the abbot, as much as he's disturbing us. There's so much building work going on.
But it depends whether or not our camera is picking up the annoying noise as much as we are picking it up. Possibly not, but if you are, our apologies, but I hope you've enjoyed the history. What a beautiful place. Of course, more recently, we took you all to Tintern Abbey. That was glorious as well. We have got some beautiful ruins in Wales and throughout the United Kingdom that have such a sense of presence even today, even in their ruined state. And as we said, there are still plenty of buildings around built from the stones that the locals collected over the centuries. Well, next we're going to a place that we love to visit, Yorkshire. Folks have said through the history we do how often we come up with Yorkshire people that have had an impact on the localities that we visit here in Wales. And we always enjoy going up there. We always enjoy meeting folks like Lynn and Graham and Tom and others. It's a lovely place, lovely people. And we love to do the history. And on one occasion during a visit a couple of years ago, we went and visited the home of the Brontë sisters. So let's share that bit of history with you next. Here we are in an idyllic spot. It's a graveyard, yes, it's a graveyard. There's no denying that. But it's a graveyard that is set in the Yorkshire countryside. Because we've come to a very particular church and graveyard today. Because just through the trees there, you can see what we would call the vicarage or the parsonage. That's where the incumbent minister lives. And then just down beyond that holly tree, just through there, you can see the church. And this particular church and parsonage and this locality is of particular significance. 200 years ago, the parson here had 3 daughters. Actually, he had 6 children, but his 2 eldest girls, they passed away when they were little, and that left him with 3 girls and a son. But it was these three girls that achieved notoriety and fame, particularly Charlotte and Emily, because 200 years ago the parson who lived in this particular place was the father of Emily and Charlotte Brontë and their sister Anne, and of course their brother Bradwell. This is where Emily Brontë, back in the 1840s, wrote her book. I believe she had her book published in 1847, but she used a pseudonym, she used a pen name, because of course ladies were not respected back then in the literary world. So she went by Ellis Bell. All of her sisters used Bell as the surname and had different names. So a lot of history here, an incredible place to think of those 4 children that played in this place, inventing the names of the imaginary places. Hope you've enjoyed the visit as much as I have. Next, we're back in Wales, and we're going way back in history. We're going back to the Romans. Those Romans, they got everywhere and they left their mark. Now, very often you see Roman ruins and they have not been excavated and you're looking at mounds in the ground or whatever. But when we went to Caerwent, it was completely different.
Found this sign, and here is a map. Oh, my shadow's in the way. If I stand there, you are here. So there we are, and we've got all this to check out. Wow, look at this. Isn't it amazing to think that these are Roman remains? Should we go in? We need a door. Aha, here's the door. Can't go in without the doorway. You know? Ding dong. Can we come in, please? Oh, thank you. Oh, look at this. Obviously that's not the original floor. But look at those walls. They've been repaired. As you can see, there's a lot of modern concrete holding them together, which is great because you can come in, look around. There's no fear you're going to damage anything. But you can have the experience of being somewhere like this. They've loaned the inside of that one. And that looks much more interesting over there because it seems to go down. Come on, let's go have a look. Ooh, this is fun, isn't it? It's like being a big kid.
Here we are in a Roman house. Well, the remains of a Roman house, but they're substantial remains, as are so many of the remains in this area. We're in Venta Celurum, and it was the market town of the Silures. That's basically what it meant. The Silures were a tribe of Britons who were Romanized. So the people here were not necessarily folks from Italy, they were folks from this area, but they lived here in the Roman way. That's why there would be a Roman Britann temple, and there was. They found it. The houses were built on the structure of the Roman way. The marketplace was centered on the ideas of Rome. And you can see right here where I am at the moment, this house is believed, this was a courtyard house, and it was believed to be built around about 200, maybe 300 AD. The actual town around these parts was founded around 75 to 80 AD. So we're going back a long time. But here I am, sat in someone's living room where they had underfloor heating. I'm sat here, and right in front of me are pillars, stone pillars, that would have held a suspended floor so that the heat could run underneath. It's unbelievable, the advances that Rome had made and transported throughout the world to various places. Now, there are Roman ruins in other places, but here the secret is how substantial they are, because in places they stand 17 feet high, walls 17 feet high, that have stood for nearly 2 millennia. That in itself is quite incredible. And here we have one of the higher points of the remains, and it was built in such a way that these stones have stood for the best part of 2,000 years and built on a rise. So any hopes of scaling this wall, I don't fancy anyone's chances. This was built to do a job, and in fairness to the Romans, if they did a job, they certainly did it well. And now we're over on the far side, looking out on the open land, and on this side they had the defensive towers. One is behind me here, and there are more going along the wall. This place was a town that was guaranteeing those who took on the Roman way of life security and prosperity. So you understand why British people felt, well, why not go with it? A pretty mobile living in such a beautiful place. And today we are still able to understand the grandeur of this just because the ruins are so impressive. There you have it. Our attempt to get a video out this week. I'm glad that we went for it. I've loved going through the footage and reminding ourselves of some of those places we've been and shared with you in the past. If you've liked it, then give us a thumbs up. And don't forget, till the next time we're all together, have fun. Bye.